All right, so for this video, we're going to focus on reliability and validity of surveys. So the focus is surveys and reliability and validity. So in general, reliability is when your survey produces consistent results when used to measure the same thing over and over. Validity refers to whether or not your survey measures what it's supposed to measure. I love the example, and I've used it forever, is a bathroom scale. So reliability would be if every time you got on the scale, you had almost the exact same weight. So let's say 140 pounds. So every time you got on the scale, it was 140, right? Maybe 140.4, 140.6, but right, it was right there around 140. That means the scale is reliable. Validity means, is that the valid, correct weight? So just because a scale is reliable, does that mean when I go to my doctor, who let's hope, knock on wood, that they have a scale that has been calibrated and they know is correct, what happens when I get on the scale at the doctor? If my home scale, right, if my home bathroom scale is valid, then when I step on my doctor's scale, I will also get 140 pounds. If it's not valid, then when I step on that scale, let's say I get 135, right, or 145. Well, that means that my bathroom scale might be reliable because I might get the same weight every time I step on it, but it's not valid because it's not the correct weight, right? It's not what I'm really trying to measure, which is how much I actually weigh. You can also kind of look at these graphs. I love that, where we've got, so what we're shooting for, right, is that target. So in this example, it's reliable but not valid, right? Because it's not hitting the target, but it's reliably getting in the same area. Here, valid but not reliable in terms of it's validly hitting the target, right? But it's not validly hitting in the same spot or not reliably hitting in the same spot. Neither reliable or valid, right? Because here we're just kind of all over, but we aren't getting anything down low. And here we've got that it's reliable and valid, right? Because they're close together, they're all in the same spot, and we're hitting that middle point right there. So the goal for your survey is to have both reliability and validity. So that's what you want, reliability and validity for your survey. So for survey reliability, the most important form of reliability for a multi-item survey, and that's important, it has to be a multi-item survey. It can't just be a one-question survey. You have to have multi-items, multiple items or multiple questions, is the survey's internal consistency. So that's the most important form of reliability, is internal consistency. Internal consistency is the degree to which sets of items on an instrument behave in the same way. How we measure that is with Cronbach's alpha. And now this is something I'm talking about just to kind of give you some foundational knowledge now, but we're going to go into a lot more detail next week. So week 5, we will go into Cronbach's alpha way more. This is just kind of getting your feet wet with it. So Cronbach's alpha is a scale's internal consistency, and it's quantified by a Cronbach's alpha value between 0 and 1. Optimum values for a Cronbach's alpha range from 0.7 to 0.9. I mean, obviously, if it's higher, that's great, but you don't want it lower than 0.7. When you modify an instrument or combine instruments in a study, the original reliability and validity may not hold for the new instrument. In those cases, it becomes important to establish validity and reliability during data analysis. So basically what this means is if you change anything from a survey that's already been written and had its reliability accounted for, then you would have to go back through and reestablish that. Also, if you use a survey for your dissertation, you'll want to do a Cronbach's alpha just to make sure that how you used it maintained that reliability that the survey should already have. So going down, we're going to talk about, just because I'm scrolling down in my PowerPoint, survey validity. So remember, reliability is getting that same number every time. Survey validity, establishing survey validity helps researchers identify if the instrument might be a good one to use for their research. But remember, validity is, are we measuring what we think we are measuring, right? So if I'm measuring transformational leadership, does this survey actually measure transformational leadership? That's the validity question. So forms of validity to look for: content validity. Do the items measure the content they were intended to measure? Predictive or concurrent validity. Do scores predict a criterion measure? Do the results correlate with other results? And construct validity. Do items measure hypothetical constructs or concepts, which can be assessed during exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis? So this last one, construct validity. So first of all, it is harder to establish validity than it is reliability. Reliability is just do Cronbach's alpha, and there you go. Validity, especially the content and predictive or concurrent, is much more difficult. Now with construct validity, we can assess this using exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, which we will cover in this class. We are going to start with confirmatory factor analysis in week 5, and we're going to use exploratory or talk about exploratory in week 6. So construct validity is kind of the important part that we will be covering in this course for a survey. So what are the steps to validate a newly created survey? And I like to do this one because sometimes when students come in, they feel like, I would love, right, to make my own survey for my dissertation. And I just want to go ahead and do this just to kind of warn everybody that might not be a great thing to do for your dissertation. And the reason for that is these are the steps to validate a newly created survey. So if you write your own survey, or if you take a survey that's already been done, but you change it, you would need to go through these steps as part of your dissertation. So you would need to write the questions, and then you would need to establish content or face validity of the questions. And you do that with a panel of experts. So for example, if you were doing a transformational leadership survey, you would have to get together a panel of experts in transformational leadership. So potentially faculty or outside industry leaders, but they would have to be a panel of experts on transformational leadership. They would then have to go through those questions and say, yes, we think these questions and answer options do establish content validity. We do think that they actually measure transformational leadership. Then based on their feedback, you would revise the questions as needed, and then you would do a pilot test, normally for 30 to 40 people. So you would have 30 to 40 people do your survey, then you would check the reliability and validity using Cronbach's alpha and exploratory factor analysis. Based on these results, you would then revise your survey again as needed. Quite often when you're creating a survey, you're going to find that the Cronbach's alpha and the exploratory factor analysis let you know that some of your questions just don't work. That's very common. It's actually not as common for everything just to be perfect the first time through. So then you would revise once again as needed. You would test again. You would need more people, and this depends on the statistical analysis, but you would test again, and then check reliability and validity again. So once again, Cronbach's alpha and confirmatory factor analysis. You would revise if needed, and if not, so if your Cronbach's alpha and the confirmatory factor analysis came back both good, you wouldn't need to revise, and you could then finally use that survey for your dissertation. So before you could actually collect your dissertation data, you would have to go through all of these steps. So this is why people who do create their own surveys actually end up going an extra semester, because normally doing this kind of makes you time-wise, right? You need an extra semester to do all of this. This is why your dissertation chair will normally strongly recommend that you pick a survey that's already been validated and already has its reliability established. Because if you pick a survey who already has validity and reliability, you do not need to use these steps. You can just go, jump around that, Monopoly board. You can go straight, right, to go, and you can just jump right into collecting your survey data. But if you try to create your own, or if you change anything on a already created survey, so if you change a question or manipulate it, you would then need to go through this process. So yeah, just think about it. If you were thinking about making your own survey, this is probably not something to do for your dissertation. This is likely to be something that you might want to save to do after you're done with your dissertation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, and then we're going to do our psych test walkthrough. So we'll actually go into psych tests and show you what you need to do for that week 4 discussion.